I need to go.
Good morning. The April 20th, 2016 meeting of the Charter Authorizing Panel is called to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Arkansas Department of Education and ask that you please silence all electronic devices. The Charter Authorizing Panel oversees the authorization, renewal, revision, and revocation of charters. The Arkansas Quality Charter Schools Act of 2013 requires the Commissioner to appoint ADE staff to this panel, and those members are seated before you today. I will ask that you speak clearly into the microphone, state your name and title for the record, and I will ask that you continue to speak clearly into the microphone for the benefit of the panel, the audience, and the viewing audience. The meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be posted on the ADE website. Panel members, you have 3 items on the consent agenda. After your review of those minutes, I'll accept a motion.
Motion to approve consent items, number 1.
Dr. Gocher's made a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second by Dr. Saunders. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Action agenda item 1, request for district conversion public charter school amendments for Badger Academy. Ms. Boyd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On March 12, 2007, the State Board of Education approved the district conversion charter application for Badger Academy. On May 4, 2012, the board approved a renewal application for Badger Academy for 5 years, granting an enrollment cap increase and additional waivers. On March 10, 2016, the charter school appeared before the board to appeal its academic distress designation. The board tabled the appeal. Representatives of Badger Academy are appearing before the Charter Authorizing Panel to request amendments to their charter. And before we get started, we'll have Jennifer Davis come and remind you of the procedures.
Ms. Davis, you're recognized.
Good morning, Jennifer Davis, staff attorney for the department. The procedures you're going to follow today for this amendment, everybody wishing to provide testimony will need to be sworn in except the attorneys. The conversion charter is going to have 20 minutes to present its amendment request to you. If there's any opposition, that will also have 20 minutes. You can extend that time as necessary. After opposition, the district conversion will have an additional 5 minutes rebuttal time. At that point, you can ask any questions, and then you can make your decision. You may defer your decision to a later date if you choose, but if you make your decision today, you also have a Google Doc that you'll need to put your reasons in for that, and that is due to when it goes to the state board, they can understand why you made your decision. Do you have any questions? Thank you.
Madam Chair, from Badger Academy and the BB School District, we have the superintendent, Dr. Belinda Shook, to start their presentation.
Thank you. All those that will be speaking on behalf of Badger Academy, if you will stand and raise your right hand, and anyone speaking in opposition. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Ms. Shook, you're recognized.
Okay, good morning, and first of all, thank you for fitting us in, because we are hoping that we can implement this plan for the next school year, so it's important that we go ahead and find out whether we are approved or not approved. And I also want to thank Ms. Boyd's division for the help and direction they've given us on this. We really didn't even realize we needed to do an amendment. We are currently located on the east end of our campus, about a half a mile from where we would like to move the conversion charter. Badger Academy is a conversion charter school, but it's also an alternative learning environment. When we got our amendment in 2012, we increased the cap on the number of students. With it being an alternative learning environment, we also want to integrate those students back into the mainstream of the regular school. We also already have those students integrated into classes, but right now we have to transport them from one site to the center of the campus, which takes time. We have to transport them for lunch, which takes time. So we really believe that moving our conversion charter to the center of the campus will be an advantage, not only for the ALE students, but also for other students who might be identified as needing some alternative learning services. The plan is that we put this located on one wing of the 910 high school building. One of our main focuses for next year is, well, it's always student achievement, but we are really focusing in on ninth graders because we feel like the transition between 8th and 9th grade is sometimes where we lose some students. So we really want to put the focus there. Mr. Madden is the director of the conversion charter and the alternative learning, and I'll tell you, he is very good at working with at-risk students. So we really feel like putting him over in the mainstream, putting the students in the mainstream, allowing these services for students who are already over at the high school would be an advantage for everyone. Occasionally, I don't know if you've ever visited our campus, but we have wireless internet. We have a few different campuses. And sometimes we have a little trouble with it. With our students having a lot of their instruction online, if our internet services go down, we have to find an alternative way to provide those instructional services. So once again, we think this would be an advantage. We will have more personnel right now. The only administrator we have at our conversion charter ALE is Mr. Madden. We have a lot of other instructional people, but he is the administrator. We feel like having it on one end of the high school will also provide some other support for him, as well as him providing support for others. So those are basically our reasons. We'll be happy to answer any questions. Like I said, it's not really going to change the services or anything that we're offering. The only amendment we're requesting is to move the physical location. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Dr. Shook, do you have any closing words before Q&A?
No, ma'am.
All right. We'll start with questions then. Ms. Pfeffer?
Okay. I don't have any questions. I just applaud I think that your decision to move is based on solid rationale to have a better environment for kids. I know you, I know your school district, and I know you want a quality education for all students, so I have absolutely no concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Gocher?
Yes, and I know we've talked about this before, but because you're changing locations, would this change your LEA? I know this is not part of the amendment, but would there be an LEA change request?
No.
There would not be.
It's my understanding that we have to keep a separate LEA
Okay.
because it's a conversion charter.
Because of conversion, of course. All right, thank you. I was thinking just the ALE piece.
Dr. Saunders?
No concerns.
Mr. Rogers? Mr. Lester? Any additional questions from the panel? Ms. Davis, are there any remaining issues regarding this request? Then, if there are no further questions, I will accept a motion regarding the request for Badger Academy.
I'll make a motion to accept that amendment.
Second.
Motion's been made by Dr. Saunders and seconded by Ms. Pfeffer to grant the request. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. If you'll give us just a moment, we'll provide a written explanation of the vote and read it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Gocher?
I voted in favor of the motion, and I feel this is a positive move for kids, for students and staff, and so I have no concerns.
Mr. Lester?
I voted for the amendment. It improves the environment for the students. I have no concerns.
Ms. Leewood?
I voted for the amendment. I don't have any concerns.
Ms. Pfeffer?
The amendment request will provide the district the opportunity to better serve ALE students and add additional supports for students and staff.
Mr. Rogers?
Voted for the amendment. I don't have any concerns about relocation.
Dr. Saunders?
I voted for the amendment. I thought this would allow the district to function more efficiently and provide more opportunities for the students.
Ms. Smith?
No concerns regarding the request to relocate their charter to the main campus.
Dr. Shook? Congratulations. We expect great things for your students.
We're really going to work on it. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. With that, we'll move to the reports section of our agenda. Panel members, do you have any reports? I have one quickly for the record. The Charter Authorizing Panel and the State Board of Education completed 2 sessions of training with the National Association of Charter School Authorizers that focused on the evaluation of charter applicant capacity, multiple measures of academic performance, monitoring, intervention, and renewal of charters. And I found the training very worthwhile. I hope our panel members did as well. Ms. Boyd, you're recognized for Report 2, Application Cycle Updates.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to let you know that we have received, I believe it's 30 letters of intent for application. I believe 18 of those are from district conversions and 12 of those are for open enrollments. The open enrollment applications are due in just 8 days. They're due on April 28th. So we're going to get to working on those soon, internally reviewing those and then sending them back out to the open enrollment applicants to kind of work through and provide better answers if they need them. Also, in front of you, I've passed out, we have put together a draft of the adult education public charter school application. This is something that we would like to get out soon. And I've also included a draft of the timeline for you, and you can see that there. You'll notice as you look through the application, it's similar to the open enrollment application. There are some differences, and mostly it includes what's in the statute and the rules for what the requirements for adult application or what adult education charter schools will look like in the state of Arkansas. So I want to give you time to look through those and then have any questions and make any suggestions for improvement.
I have some questions I'll start off on.
Thank
You
you,
said
Dr.
there are
Chair.
30 applicants, and 18 of those are district conversion. So 12 would be open enrollment. And so when I look down on the August timeline for the 17th and 18th, with that being adult education and open enrollment applicant hearings, would that be making the assumption over those 2 days there would be a possibility of 12 applications for open enrollment charter schools and then in addition to the adult education hearings?
That's correct. That is a possibility. We are anticipating only 1 application for the adult education charter school. And traditionally, all letters of intent do not bring forth complete applications. I could know more about that on the 28th, and if it looks like if all 12 people have submitted an application in a timely fashion, then at our May meeting, we might want to consider adding a 3rd day to those August meetings.
Do we have restrictions in the law or anything that requires when month or dates on when those hearings occur?
I'll defer to legal.
Okay.
No, it's just, we have dates on when amendments can be heard, which can be waived, of course, and the rest is adopted by you guys, the timeline.
I don't know the feelings of the rest of the group. I think I would like just to consider, as we're looking at the schedule, possibility of trying to find some way to limit the number of hearings on any particular day, even if we had to space it out over, say, have a couple days one week, a couple days the following week, or something of that nature. I think it would allow us more time to carefully look at each application and give it the effort that it deserves, instead of trying to stack it all up or cram it all into a small amount of time. Just my thoughts.
Ms. Smith?
I agree with you that we probably need to look at the number that we have on any given day, because just I know when we had these marathon days that last, I mean, even our recent state board meetings that lasted late into the night, I just felt like we got to a point where, people weren't as in tune. I do know right now, as far as the charter office, I mean, we do have all these intents to apply, but again, they may not all come through with a full application. So that I do think that is something that the charter office can look at. I mean, Alexander, do you see that being an issue?
Right, so last year, just to kind of give you an idea, there were 17 letters of intent. We only got 5 applications that came through completed, and then in the end, we only had 3 that went through the entire process.
So does that mean that a maximum we'd only hear 3 potentially?
I can't tell you that right now.
Okay.
I can just tell you that traditionally those numbers really narrow down by the time it's time for you guys to see them.
But I do agree with you. I mean, I think when you get to the point where we're trying to hear more than 4 a day, that probably needs to be looked at in the schedule. So once the charter office, if possible, you guys know the actual number of applications, if then we can go back maybe and look at the days. With the adult charter, those adult charters, they have to come with $1 million of support before they ever even come before us. And so that's a part of the legislation, because they're not actually asking for funds from the education revenues or whatever. But so the adult charters, we're really only looking at one that you should be getting. So that shouldn't take up that much time.
Are there dates that you would like to set aside just in case they're needed for future planning? For example, the Wednesday and Thursday of the following week in August. Ms. Clay?
If I can mention something, multiple days would certainly be okay, but I think you're probably going to have to look at all in the same week, because you'll remember that any decision you make gets the opportunity to be reviewed by the state board at either the next regular meeting or a specially called meeting if earlier. So our timelines on turning around and getting stuff on the state board agenda. That's why the charter meetings are always placed in the week immediately after the state board. So we have a couple of weeks to get items posted and prep before they're on the state board agenda. So there are some constraints on when those days could be. So it might have to be multiple days all in one week, but the further we go away from when they're scheduled and the closer to the next state board meeting, it starts not working with our timelines with the state board.
If I could add, so that week is going to be the first week of school, correct? But I'm going to, and so I understand it's going to be difficult, but I'm going to echo Dr. Saunders. More than 4 in one day, I just can't personally say that I'm going to be able to review and make good decisions. And I know the hard part is right now you don't know how many ultimately we are going to be hearing. So I guess we have a dilemma. And I guess part of me would say I understand about the timeline for then the board, hearing at the next month, and I understand that's part of the process, but I just, I don't think we need to sacrifice convenience for quality. Mm-hmm. So I don't think we can just commit and say these 2 days in August are going to be something we feel really good about committing to right now.
Okay.
Looking at the schedule, is it possible, Ms. Boyd, that we could tentatively schedule August 19th And we've got,
Yeah, I would ask the rest of the panel to look at their calendars and say if you guys would be interested in blocking off the 16th and the 19th or just the 19th. Because if we had all 12 come through with applications and then the adult, that would be 13. And we could do, it would, if you only want to do 4 in a day, then we'll have to do 4 days.
Would it
And it
be,
makes sense to me to only not do more than 4 in one day.
would it be possible, Ms. Clay, what you were referencing earlier, I know it would be a little departure than what we've done in the past, but if we were to have, say, 2 days on August 17th and 18th, and let me just throw out an idea, let's say that we also put out 2 days, the August 24th, 25th, or the week following that. I know that it would not be in time for that next board meeting, but could those decisions then be had or addressed at the October board meeting?
No.
Okay.
I mean, the law says they've got to be at the earliest of the next regularly scheduled meeting or a specially called meeting. And so the next regular meeting, which would be September, is when they have to be heard.
And I have September 8th on that, and if I'm correct, it's 10 days, 10 working days prior to that for the agenda and items, is that correct?
That's correct. We also have to provide anyone in opposition the opportunity to submit a letter stating that they would like to request a review from the state board. So that also comes into play. You have to make the decision. I have to immediately send a letter out to the schools or the applicant in the affected districts to let them know that they can formally request opposition from the state board. And usually those are due, so like if you make a decision on the 17th, I send a letter out on the 19th, and they have until like the 24th or 25th to make that recommendation. So if you make a decision on the 24th, I send a letter out on the 26th. The agenda and everything will already be posted by the time they can formally make a request for opposition.
may I suggest that we block Tuesday, the 16th in the morning, as well as Friday, the 19th for the morning?
Just for half a day?
We may
And-
need them all day.
Well, I'm hopeful that we can do two
2 a day.
on those, but
2 or 3.
obviously we would need to block out on our personal schedules all day.
Okay. I'll make
And I
note
want
of
to
that.
echo something Ms. Pfeffer said, that I think the thing that I've been impressed with this team is, and this panel, is how critically, the detail by which we review the applications, and we take it very seriously, and the time that is required to do an effective review of an application, especially since these are new applications. I think 4 is my personal preference as well.
And we definitely appreciate that. The state of Arkansas appreciates that.
So I believe the consensus has been that we will hold August 16, 17, 18, and 19 on our calendars, filling up the 17th and 18th first, and then using the 16th as needed, and then the 19th would be the final date to add.
And and at our next meeting in May, I will know how many completed applications I received, so I can give you another report to give you a better idea of what we'll be tackling in August.
That'll be great. What additional feedback do you need on the adult charter application?
Just if you have any input or any questions, and if you could approve the application as is or with needed revisions.
Do you need that approval today?
I would like that approval today, yes. Yeah, take your time, I'm sorry.
Can you just describe to me a little bit of the process in creating this? Just what the thought
Right.
process was?
So what we did was we looked at the open enrollment application because it has the most, it has more constraints and prompts for the applicant. So we looked at that, we went through and we looked at what would be applicable to an adult education charter school, and we marked it up. And then we went through again, looking at the statute and the rules beside it, and then made additions as needed. In the last few pages, you'll see are the statement of assurances. That's where a lot of additions were made because there's a lot of, in the statutes and the rules that are requirements for the adult charter application. So like the $1 million that Ms. Smith referenced, that's part of the assurances. Before, we talked to a different groups of stakeholders before we started the process. We know that this charter school can only serve people who are 18 years or older. They won't be getting state funds. However, they could be serving special need populations. So we tried to take into account how that would play out because, you know, federal monies can be given to those students up to like 21 or 23, 23, I believe. So there were a few things that we took into account.
I think my questions, I'm just sitting here, I don't know that I have enough knowledge about requirements for adult education and how they differ from K-12 education. And yes, and I'm concerned that we might need a rundown, a training, a something to go over. Here's what's specifically different about adult ed in terms of what's required for teachers, what's required if you have special needs students, what's required for facilities, and how much of it is the same as K-12 and how much of it is different. I definitely would want that before I hear any kind of, and even trying to approve this application, because there's a few things that look different, and I'm unprepared.
Sure, and the deal with the adult charters is they will be providing a high school diploma. So they are going to be providing the same high school education. They're going to be under the same requirements that any other high school in the state is, because they're going to be offering a high school diploma in addition to like some kind of industry certification, such that, you know, their goal is to get those students who have maybe dropped out or for whatever reason, and to come back in and get a high school diploma. They feel that a high school diploma carries a different connotation than a student getting a GED, so they want to give that. So they're going to be under our standards. They're going to be under our same rules that any other high school would get. They're just not going to be getting money from us.
So they would be under the same standards for accreditation?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Thus the reason they need a GT program, ELL instruction, et cetera. Because I was
Absolutely.
thinking the only thing that applied would be special education up to a 21st birthday. But if they're, wow, that's a,
Yeah, this is really a recovery. I mean, the law
Right.
was intended to be a recovery of students, or a place for, instead of going back to high school when you're 21,
right.
and high school principals having to make that decision about, this is a place that would cater to that group, that population.
Okay.
And then they would be eligible for
A high
all
school.
waivers?
Yeah.
And just real quick, you know, one of the people that have displayed interest in this is Goodwill Industries. And what they have what's called their Excel programs, and they have them all over the country. And it is designed, I mean, it could be somebody who's, you know, in their 60s who never got a high school diploma, or, you know, somebody who's dropped out, they've, for whatever reason, at whatever age, and they want to come back and they want the satisfaction of having a high school diploma, or if they have dropped out at such a young age, to come back and get an industry certification. So they have this program all over, and they give a high school diploma. So they basically are a high school, it's just for older kids. They're going to be under all the same laws, they're going to be under all the same standards, they're just going to have to fund it themselves.
Okay.
So just for clarification, you must be 18 years or older, and there's no
It's
age cap?
19 and older.
19 and older, and there's no cap on the age?
No.
Yeah, 19, that makes sense.
Would someone be eligible to enroll if they already had a high school diploma, but they were seeking the technical certificate?
I don't believe so. I think the law says, and I think it's in the rule, that it says they cannot have had a high school diploma or have the credit to receive a high school diploma.
I'm sorry.
No, no,
On
please.
page 9 of the application, number 5, the assessment for measuring performance, I would be interested in seeing how what would be the expectation there in terms of, is it graduation rate? Is it, what would be looked at there in terms of measuring performance for adult ed schools?
Sure, and that, I think one of the questions that, we have addressed in here is, like everybody has to take the 11th grade assessment test, like how are they going to determine, what is it, the 11th grade? And of course, are they going to assess who is actually an 11th grader for purposes of that? I mean, that's going to have to be something, how they're going to tell us how they're going to do that. And the law does say that that's one of the things they have to provide us, is the assessment of how they're going to judge those students' performance. Like, if somebody who's 21 comes back, how do they determine, are they a 10th grader, an 11th grader, a 12th grader?
Will they be taking state assessments then?
Mm-hmm.
But there is not a state assessment for 11th and 12th grade. The ACT for 11th grade is an optional test. 12th grade, there is not one. 9th and 10th grade, so that would probably need to be something that was decided. If by credits you were considered to still be a sophomore, then how would that play out? So that would be something that would need to be figured out. And had they ever taken it before? I mean, did they drop out before their sophomore year?
And the school accountability?
Mm-hmm.
Where do they fall in terms of, I may be getting in the weeds on some of this, but I think it just speaks to, I don't want to sound like I'm opposed. I want
Sure.
I want these opportunities, so I don't want to be an obstructionist, but I don't want us to get in and and the rest of the board panel, y'all may come in. I almost feel like we're trying to figure this out and have no idea what the end result really needs to be. And if that's the way it needs to be, then that's fine. But I just have a lot of questions.
I think I can help. So part of it is, so we walk a fine line. What we have built is a shell to house the requirements as led by statute and rule. A lot of the work that needs to be done to make a lot of those determinations, in my mind, is work that the applicant has to provide to us. They have to say, this is our plan, just like with open enrollments. This is our plan to execute these things. And so that's really, a lot of that is on them.
Has our adult education, have they had a part working with us on this? And have we had conversations with them? Just seems new, and maybe it's not. Maybe it's just new to me.
No, we have not had, that I'm privy to, we have not had conversations with adult education.
Ms. Boyd, you'd mentioned that, I like the way you phrase it, this is the shell to support the things that are in rules and legislation. So you created this based upon the requirements.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing more, nothing less than simply what is required at this point.
Right.
Okay.
Ms. Smith, could you respond to the question that Ms. Pfeffer proposed about what does this mean for assessment? You kind of alluded to, and then Ms. Barnes is not here, but do you know how that would then play into state accountability measures?
One thing I think we need to remember is we're not funding it. This was legislation that really Goodwill Industries kind of put forward based on a model program, I believe, in Indiana. Is that correct? They've got several there. They've worked with several legislators. I know that I attended a meeting early on with Commissioner Wood and some of the other legislators about trying to get this through. And the whole idea about the funding part was anybody coming to apply for an adult charter had to come with their money. And that they were really focusing on giving a pathway for adults to obtain a high school degree beyond just going out and getting a GED. So I don't know that in terms of accountability and the measures, I don't know that it even falls in the same category, because we're not funding them. There's no money tied to this. The thing that I think that we have to be accountable for is the pathway that we lead out to say that that is a high school diploma. That when that they have finished the requirements set forth by our agency before they can say this student, or this participant has received a high school diploma. So I think that's something I think they're going to have to closely work with the curriculum instruction unit on the courses that they're providing, and if those meet the requirements of this is an English course for credit. I think you're going to have to, the seat time and all those discussions, that's going to change because you're looking at flexible schedules with an adult program. A lot of evening classes, digital learning, mentoring places, and it's more about course credit than anything else.
And I'm with you completely there. But if we don't know those answers, I would like to look at the law. I would like to better understand all of it before we try to approve an application today, because I don't know, and maybe I should have been more aware, but I wasn't, and there wasn't an attachment on here, and I don't think I was prepared for all of this today. If the rest of you feel differently, talk me through all of this. But if we don't know for sure what we'll be held accountable for and things like that, I want to do this right, and I don't want to put barriers in the way. I don't want to put obstruction to make it happen, but those would be my concerns.
And there is a lot that, as an agency, that, we would need to look at accountability assessment, all that kind of stuff to see where these are going to fall in our existing laws. But outside of the decisions that we make on how we view the adult education charters, either way, the application itself can go out. It could go out in tandem while we can get together and have work session to get together and discuss and decide how we want to handle those type of things. They can work in tandem if that's something that you would choose to do. But, because the application itself, the only thing other than, like I say, it was modeled off the open enrollment. We did take out the, what's the assessment data for the district in which you're going to be located, because, there's not going to be a competition for the students. So we took out that, but the only other things is what's required by law. Everything else that we would have to, decide how we want to do that. And we can decide that, in conjunction in a work session that runs along the application cycle.
Would this type of charter fall underneath the rules that are currently, that we're working on with the ALE groups and that accountability and how students, would this type of charter even fit in that set of rules?
I guess IETech.
No, no. These fall under our normal charter school rules.
Okay.
In our charter school rules, there's a section that applies to all types of charters, and then there's one that applies to district conversion, some that applies to open enrollment, and then we've added an entire section of rules that apply to just the adult education charters.
Okay.
And for me, Madam Chair, if we're just looking at the application, and the application is fulfilling what is already written in legislation and in rules, I'm okay with moving forward with an application while sharing the same concerns Ms. Pfeffer has. A lot of those concerns will be addressed at an actual review of application. Am I correct?
Sure, and I would
So-
suggest that we would get together prior to kind of talk through some of these things. So if we need to, look at other laws to see how these schools may or may not fit and what we can do, then I would suggest that we do that and not wait until you actually review the full application.
I almost laughed before I say this, but we could actually have a work session?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I do have a few edits that I've noted.
Thank you.
That's what I do all day
She's a
long.
quick read.
One is on page 11, number 8.
Yes, ma'am.
Describe the process that will be used to ensure all curriculum materials used in the education programs are aligned with the Arkansas academic standards.
Thank you.
And on page 26, in number 2, there's a comma spacing issue
Got
on
it.
the third line.
Would you all be interested in setting a date for a work session.
Ms. Davis, do you have a date in mind when you would be ready?
No, your schedules are probably a lot less flexible than mine. So,
How many items will we have May 18th, Ms. Boyd?
Right now, formally, we have 3 on the agenda. I'm anticipating an addition of 2, possibly, so it could be 5. They're amendment requests. A majority of them are location changes or additional, well, no, there's one that includes a cap increase, but most of them are just the change in the physical location of where the students are served. And there are some about, there are a couple that are going to be about seat time and mostly for seniors.
Would it be appropriate that we would have time to discuss this at the end of that meeting? Or do we need to have the work session prior to?
I don't. Yeah, I think so. I think we can make that happen.
Can we make some suggestions on what we would, what would the work session look like?
Yes, please.
Okay, because that may determine, it may, because,
Well, and I kind of want to know, just for Alexandra and Mary, is this their role as a charter office to clarify all this? Or is it, I mean, who's responsible for pulling the law down, really looking at the models, looking at the different other states? I mean, that's a huge task, and that unit has very few people with a lot of work to do. And so I kind of want to clarify who's responsible for all that.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
so, Ms. Smith, you said that you had attended a meeting a while back where you were kind of introduced and to this whole idea. For me, I would want someone to basically give an overview of the law and how this falls within the ADE charter review process, and then examples from other states, and really be able to definitively say, you wouldn't have the same accountability requirements, you know, so I think that may take more than one person. And so I think you're right that that could be a very complex.
The meeting that I attended had someone from Goodwill Industries there. It had the legislator who was wanting to sponsor this bill. The intention really of the meeting was to inform Commissioner Wood that they were not asking for Department of Education funding, and just kind of the premise of it, and would it be something that we would be comfortable with? And so it was really just kind of a courtesy meeting prior to legislation being submitted. But having someone probably from Goodwill Industries that would be submitting an application would probably be someone that we'd want to have there, and possibly the legislator who
sure.
proposed the legislation.
And we have been in communication with the person that's in Arkansas that would be heading up in this education program, and I'm sure that she would be more than willing to come and speak to you about how their program works, how it's worked in other states, and the models that they have used, if you'd like that.
And Ms. Davis, though, I think I would want ADE legal then to clarify, because if they are required to follow all of our standards for accreditation, that does include accountability measures. So if they're not held accountable for some of those same accountability things, then I would want you all to be able to clarify everything.
Sure.
So that way we really have a good understanding of what it is we're going to be reviewing when we have these types of charters come before us.
Sure.
So it sounds like we'll have ADE Legal there to give an overview. My office will support by providing what the ADE charter review process is going to look like and provide details on that. And then we'll have Goodwill Industries and the sponsor of the bill possibly in to speak to what happens in other states, to provide you with examples of the work that they're doing across the nation.
Okay, going back to the purpose of the agenda item, looking at the application, excluding some grammatical and formatting issues, how does everyone feel about moving forward with an approval of the application, knowing that, because I think that if this, again, is fulfilling what is in law and in rule, then I'm okay with moving forward, while we still, I feel we still need to look at what this looks like on a second level. But I'm willing to make a motion that we approve the application pending any grammatical and formatting changes required to make a more effective document.
Is that your motion?
That just became my motion.
I have a motion from Dr. Gocher
I'll second that.
and a second from Dr. Saunders to approve the application with edits.
Thank you.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I want to, my thinking on seconding it was for a multitude of factors. And some of the things I was looking at, one in particular, was the timeline and trying to, with the time frame and everything else, not that that should be the only driver, but I also was thinking, I think that we have a lot to educate ourselves on and learn and grow in this area, but I'm not sure that at this time that would make decisions on what information, additional or restricting information in the application. And so with those two things considered, I think it would be prudent to go ahead and approve the application at this time.
And also, if I can add to the discussion, later down the road, if we find after the work session that we find that there may be necessary changes through the process of time, we can always bring the application back for revision for, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Lester, did you have additional comment? Ms. Smith?
Does the application require approval from the board, from us? I mean, does it require, are you just asking out of courtesy?
It
Or,
has
so
to
is it an
be-
actionable item?
Yeah, it has to be adopted by the authorizer.
Okay.
If in the course of our training that we realize that there may be additional information that we would like to see from an applicant, could we request that that applicant bring that information for the hearing that would occur in August?
Yeah,
I think they'd be amenable to that.
Okay, we have a motion from Dr. Gocher and a second from Dr. Saunders to adopt this application. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Application is adopted. Ms. Boyd, we will consider May 18th as a possible work session after our charter panel meeting.
Yes,
If it
ma'am.
looks like there's going to be ample enough time. If there's not, can we go ahead and set an alternative time for that?
Yes, ma'am.
Considering we have guests coming in, but
So once you kind of see what the agenda would look like to put that work session together, you'll know the time and you'll be closer to how many items we'll have to consider on the 18th. Is the, do y'all have the afternoon of the 19th open?
yes.
I'm looking for head nods.
August, correct?
No, May 19th.
Okay, I was looking on the August
Sorry.
date. That's okay.
May 19th, if that, as an alternative time for the work session. Ms. Leewu? Mr. Rogers? Yes. I have head nods all around.
So starting around 1 p.m.?
Yes.
Okay.
So, the first date would be if ample time permits on the 18th, or if not, then move it to the 19th at 1. And then if any, as people are reading through the application, if they find any additional edits, they'll let you know directly.
Thank you.
Right. Any other items before the panel today, Ms. Boyd?
No, ma'am, that's all I have. Thank you so much for your time.
Any additional items from panel members? Then I appreciate your participation today, and I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you.
We need to write down our reasons for voting on the adjournment.